Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of I'm Not Gonna Be Quiet. This is a space where folks step into the circle of community to share the path that they have traveled to find liberation after periods of staying silent about their experienced pain and harm. In each interview, we get a chance to hear and learn from our guest what they refuse to be quiet about, what their silence cost them, and the price they have paid for their freedom. My name is Danica, and I'm your host. I'm here, you're here, get comfortable, and let's get free together. Today's guest is Professor Cassandra Morman, who is an instructor of ESL and training services at College Preparatory and ESL Professional Tutoring Services. Cassandra's pronouns are she, her, hers, and she is a globe-trotting mama who grew up in the South and through her lived experiences has arrived at life lessons that she's no doubt teaching her little one, but also she's here today to share some of those gems with us. Welcome, Cassandra.
Thank you for having me, Danica.
I'm so excited that you're here. And so for our listeners, super brief backstory. I spent a couple of years living abroad in South Korea, and I stumbled upon this beacon of light. This is auditory, so you can't see her. And this is not to objectify her, but I just need you to know that she is so beautiful. So when I say beacon of light, like aesthetically, she's pleasing to the eyes, but also her spirit is so full of light. So while we were trekking around South Korea, we ran into each other, we developed a relationship, and post-Korea, we've been able to reconnect and really build our lives together from different geographical locations in the States. And she is like another guest of mine, a keeper. She's someone who will always be in my life because she's a gem. And so I'm grateful. I'm super grateful, and I appreciate you being willing to be one of my first guests.
Oh my gosh, I am so touched and grateful. Like I don't know how to respond to that other than I thank the universe that our paths crossed. I really do. I love you so much. Thank you.
Ashe, ashe. That feels good. All right, so listen, let's just jump right into it. The name of the podcast is I'm Not Gonna Be Quiet. And so it just makes sense to start there with the first question. What have you refused to be silent about?
Good question. I refuse to be silent about the effects of the expectations people dump on me.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
That's a big one. And that's something that I think most people struggle with, certainly women. Girls and women, I feel like culturally we are socialized to be caregivers, to be the dumping grounds for people's problems, for people's needs. So I think this is certainly a topic that so many of us can identify with. What did that look like for you?
Well, just a little backstory. I noticed like the roots of it stemmed from my childhood. So this is when my dad was stationed in Fort Polk, Louisiana. And I had a sister, Scorpio, born in the 70s, born 1975. And I don't know Well, before I say that, I'll say that we had like this wonderful relationship. We would take car rides as a family to the lake and just have fun. And we really enjoyed each other. We were very connected. Like, you could not tell us that we were not only loving of each other, but there for each other and in tune with each other. But with that came tragedy, and with tragedy comes like the effects, right? My sister, her name is Burnett Montgomery. She got in an accident where she was hit by a train. And I don't know, still to this day, as an adult, I don't know the story because it was too difficult for people to share. Even now, when I ask, it's as if like their response is, I didn't hear you ask any question. Yeah. And I get it, but I don't know how it happened. And I was hopeful that she was going to come back home from the hospital. I was a little girl. I was 6 years old, and she's my big sister. I arranged all of her stuffed animals together because we shared a room. My parents, we knew that she was going to, because she was getting surgery for prosthetic legs. So we knew that we had to revamp the house. So instead of stairs, they had like a ramp being built. And because I'm from the South, I grew up with the whole stay out of grown folks' business type of training. So it was not customary to ask questions to gain more insights, right? And also I could just sense that this was very difficult for the family. As a young girl, I didn't have the vocabulary, but I knew it was difficult. And then one day, that day, it was around Easter, she died. And it was this unspoken expectation placed on me. I was the only daughter/sister left alive. So you have to stay safe, and you can't make us worry about you, and you can't be sad. And you also have to allow us to grieve in a way where you are the focal point. So we are overly looking at you and what you do, which I agreed to. Again, this was unspoken. I didn't know that this was happening. It was just like, okay, we feel these things. There's this understanding, and I wanted mama to feel better. I wanted daddy to feel better. I wanted the brothers to feel better. I wanted us to feel safe. So yes, I will do this as a 6-year-old girl. I didn't know that. I understood as a young child that death meant that I'm not going to see her again, but I didn't know the effects of it, that it would be so long. So forever is long, but to a 6-year-old, it's like, okay, it's long, but there was no but. So that expectation to be whatever my family needed and wanted me to be, it was very long. It wasn't, okay, I feel better and now I don't put this expectation on you anymore. It was long, and it still carries on today.
Yeah, it sounds like from very, very early on, you were groomed to be a caretaker to everybody's emotional, spiritual needs, which I feel like a lot of girls are kind of nurtured in that way to almost, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but being a woman and of this culture, it almost silences you. And it causes you to show up as they are defining how they need you to show up. And so thank you for sharing that also. Let me just backtrack and say that, because it's not always easy to talk about loss, and loss in such a tragic way. So I appreciate you sharing a part of your sister with us.
Thank you.
May she rest in peace.
Thank you. But yeah,
Um,
you hit it right on the nail about the silencing part. And again, I didn't know. And I honestly believe that my family unit, they were not intentional in silencing me. I think if they, even now, if they gained awareness in a way that they are able to understand, I think they would be like, whoa, sis or baby girl, I am so sorry. I didn't know. Um, but yeah, that is a byproduct of this process, in carrying everyone's expectations and showing up in the way that people expect me to show up. It's very silencing. I didn't know that until I became an adult. If I'm being real, I didn't know that until like 2022, if I'm keeping it 100, right? And that's just going on this healing process and things coming up and ancestors saying, all right, let's knock down these generational curses. And like, oh, I didn't know, I was unaware. Okay, that's something I need some time to process. You know what I mean? So
yes.
that silencing aspect, I had no idea was a long-standing byproduct of showing up as people expected me to.
And so with the silencing, that's a loss, right? You lose your autonomy, you lose your voice. What are some of the other losses that you experience by having to show up and perform as people expected you to? Like, what other harm was done to you? Unintentional, but what did you notice you lost in this process?
That exploration, I don't know if it's like, even to this day, I don't know if that's normal or not, but I assume that the normal exploration that people have of self, and it's okay to give myself permission to explore this and to explore that, to find out who I am as a person. I didn't feel that my environment was conducive to that exploration. Again, not because I was surrounded by hateful people. It's just I didn't get that external permission. Because one thing about it, when I showed up for people in the way that they expected, it's because that permission was granted. So that becomes like an addiction. Like that's the responsibility that I take on. I can't say, oh, well, they just put this on me and, oh, it's me. They do have the responsibility, but my accountability in it is that it was addictive, because with that external permission, it was like the green light of, this is okay, this is the norm, this is safe, and someone else was able to do the thinking for me. Like I didn't have to put the effort or the work into thinking about, okay, what does Cassandra want in this moment, or for her life, or in this development or this stage of development. I didn't have to worry about that, because as long as I got that external validation, we were Gucci. I didn't have to exert any energy. But that was also harmful because, my mom passed away. She was like, I went to college for my own reasons, but the bulk of that was to see her happy, because I needed mama to be happy. I needed mama to be proud. I needed mama to be good. All right, well, mama transitioned and I was completely lost. Like, I'm still, thankfully, because of healing, I'm on this journey of finding who I am and then gaining the courage to advocate for myself. And just for people to know, I stand 6 feet tall. Like, my build looks like she should be confident. She should already know these things. You know what I mean? And in certain aspects, that comes naturally, right? But in many other aspects, they're not so natural. So back to what I was sharing when my mama passed away, it was all right, there's no more external validation, trusted external validation. What I realized there was, now I'm making myself vulnerable to be controlled, because that addiction is saying you need that external validation. Because with that, I don't know if you're familiar with like the pain pleasure principle, but like pain and pleasure exist simultaneously, but one outweighs the other. So the pain of seeking external validation is present, but the pleasure outweighed the pain, right? But after mama passed away, the pain started to outweigh the pleasure, because I realized that I was setting myself up to be controlled. I was being controlled before, obviously, but I was unaware. So that's another layer of harm, that control. Well, you know what? If you don't show up in the way that I want you to show up, Cassandra, I'm going to withhold, and whatever it was, because I was vulnerable. I will withhold my affection. I will withhold my community. I will withhold support, whatever it was. And that's violent. You know what I mean? And many people, many relatives, and many people in the community took advantage of that. Like, we know that you are a single mom and you don't have your mama, but if you don't be a Christian, because I'm no longer a Christian, which is not a byproduct of my mom passing away, I felt safe enough to come out of the closet, if you will, of not being a Christian. But that started in 2008. Well before my mom transitioned in 2013. But that was one of the things. Well, if you do not identify as a Christian, we will not help you. We will not be a listening ear as you grieve. It's like, oh, okay, I see the control and I don't like it. And in the grief, I developed, you know how Iyanla Vanzant talks about, like, there are certain parts of ourselves that protect who we are when we're in certain situations.
Yes.
There was this Cassandra that protected Lil Sansan after her mom passed away, who was very fluent in profanity and very much snappy. Like, oh, that's the energy you want to deliver? I will match your energy so you can see your ugliness. Before, I would never do that, because that's not how people want me to show up. So she served her purpose in helping me to I guess, handle that rejection, because I didn't show up in the way that people wanted me to show up. Or that was a pivotal moment, because luckily I didn't stay there, but she served her purpose to help me to catapult. Hey, it's all right to stand on your own. And it's scary, especially, I think, with any form of addiction. And I know there's this image, especially here in the States, that we have of addiction where it's solely substances. But that addiction to external validation, the protection that it provides, maybe it's the illusion of safety. I don't know. It felt freaking good, right? It was scary to break away from it. It reminds me, it's very reminiscent of those who suffer domestic violence. And they're like, yeah, I get beat up every single day or multiple moments within the day, but I don't have to worry about how I'm going to pay for the mortgage or rent or bills. I have food to eat. I have a car. I have nice clothes to wear. I don't know what my life is like apart from that, and if I would be successful. That's how I was breaking away from those addictions associated with showing up in the way people expect me to.
Yeah, you have dropped so many gems.
Mm,
So I just want to highlight a couple because your story is so powerful. And I think it's been, a journey of healing for you, but I think it's going to offer healing for those that are listening because so
mm,
many of us have traveled this same road. It's all the same, right? It's these codependent relationships where things are one-sided, right? And it's transactional in a way where only one person really gets what they want. But it's like what you said, there's this illusion that the other person who's giving will get something in return, but it's simply a smile. It's simply a well done. And then that's it. And it's all contingent on you performing, showing up the way they expect you to.
yes.
And what you're talking about is accurate, right? It shows up in these interpartner violent relationships, but it also shows up in every other relationship in our life if we're not aware of it.
Come on, girl.
And being able to break that pattern is, just like you said, what catapults you into healing. But the interesting thing is that it sounds like for you to be able to not just recognize how that pattern was negatively impacting your quality of life and just who you are, your identity, your worth, your value. But it sounds like the loss of your mom really served as an opportunity.
Yes, a hidden, I didn't know. Like, I can tell you right now, and I know you know this, it definitely didn't feel like that. I know when people talk about like healing and opportunities, there's this connotation of beauty and ease. And no, whoo, girl, it was not. It was rough. It was painful. It was rage provoking. It was anxiety inducing. It was all of the negative feels and sensations that I didn't feel them momentarily. It was like, it was a mood. It was a cloud set on me, and it was like, okay, we're going to chill with you. And it's like, no, I don't want this. I don't, but that's how it was. That opportunity felt like crap. And in hindsight, what you just shared, I'm able to draw the same conclusion. It was, dare I say, a wonderful, advantageous opportunity. Words I would have never said back in 2013. Are you kidding me? Girl.
Yeah. I remember what you looked like in 2013 and what was happening. And, grief looks different for everyone. And, we've talked about this at, various times. And I'd love to talk to you about this outside of this podcast because I just kind of had this epiphany of thoughts. Because with that type of loss, there's something so special and horrible at the same time. So, but I appreciate you sharing another loss, right? Another major loss, starting with your sister and then your mother, which, showing up for people's expectations, that's a loss, right? You lose relationships. I appreciate you detailing that, right? Because you're
Yes.
no longer beholden to their demands. And so you start to see a very different reality. You start to see, it sounds like on this journey, you started to have a different lens through which you were looking at your relationships. And as a result, you had to terminate some of those relationships in pursuit of, your own liberation. So it's clear that your silence cost you pieces of yourself. Your silence cost you what seemed like safety, but actually wasn't. And your silence cost you some of those relationships.
It
And
was very lonely. And I gotta say, like, as a huge extrovert, and for those who are into astrology, I'm a Libra sun and a Sagittarius moon. So I'm just like overload and extrovertedness, right? It was lonely. And that's the time where it's really beneficial to talk to someone. And I didn't have that, or I felt I was too dark in that moment to share and to open up with other people, because it's not like a movie where, okay, you're sad. I wasn't even sad yet. And I know people say that anger is a secondary emotion. Primary or secondary, I felt it. I was pissed. So that's what I felt. And like, I was violent. I wasn't a safe person to even make community. And especially with the community I had, it definitely cost me my community, which was extremely lonely for a long period of time. And as I look back, that's where my career took off, because I made selfish moves, but selfish in a good way. Like I said before, like I would show up in ways that people wanted me to. In hindsight, I set boundaries, even with my students. So I taught in higher education, and I told them, look, now I'm your professor within these 4 walls. Y'all are grown and I'm grown. So if you see me at a club, if you see me at a hookah bar, like, don't come up to me saying, oh, hi, Professor Morman, or, oh my gosh, I can't believe, no, You only get me during office hours and when we are confined to these 4 walls. Like, and that's something I never, oh my God, Danica, I never would have done. I would have created space for, okay, well, this is my wish fulfillment. I'll drop that and I will create space for how you want me to show up. During that time, I was like, we're not doing that, because I'm human and I need my outlet. So there is there's good and bad in everything, right? And those were like the positives that I can glean from it.
Yeah. So it sounds like in order to break free, you started putting boundaries in place with people that, you know, you have an intimate community with, and also those who just kind of have some proximity to you, but they're not your first layer folks. Were you doing other things to break free? Because at this point, it sounds like you're clear on what's been holding you hostage and causing you harm, and you're no longer accepting it. In fact, you're divesting from those spaces. How else, were there any other ways? What else did you do to break free?
Gotcha. This was really motivated through emotions. Just from, I wanted to take control over my life, because I lost the women in my life that I grew up with. My sister, my mother, all of my mother's sisters, and I was left with Southern men. And I'm not knocking anyone, so let me just preface that. I'm not knocking anyone. But girl, let me tell you, these Southern men down here. So there's strong patriarchy down here, double standards, the whole 9, where those would have been hesitations for me to take action, to even consider avenues. And with the emotions, I was like, I'm doing whatever I want to do. So that was another way. Like, I just did it because of the intense emotions. I also realized that, and this is the time where I was still legally married, but the man I was married to a man who was based in Nigeria. So my time in South Korea, you know, I got all booed up. I was like, I'm in love.
I
And I
recall.
married this guy. And you know, things just started to fall apart where he going through the immigration process, which is very rough here in the States, like unnecessarily so, even getting an immigration attorney. But the reason I mentioned that is because I did not want to be a Black single mother. I didn't want to be a stereotype. I did not want to create this environment for my daughter to struggle. And like it just appeared as though things were falling out of my control. And I said, no, I want control. Like I want control. So I mean, I'm not saying that this is the way to do it. These are just things I've done. I said, I am going to go out and I'm going to hook up with this man because I want to. And I do not care, where before Cassandra would care about what others would have to say. Like, oh, well, aren't you supposed to be like a benevolent soul? And aren't you supposed to, like, listen, I don't drink alcohol, but I am going to hop on pop, you know, like, this is my outlet. So, like, I just took the course of action that I chose because it allowed me to regain control. Even becoming a vegan, that was something I wanted to do. Growing up in the South, we eat meat, breakfast, lunch, snack, dinner, midnight snack. Like, it's a part of everything we consume. And I said to myself, especially after I found out my mom died of a heart attack, I don't want to have any associations with animal products. That was another way of me, a healthy way of me regaining control. So a lot of it centered on me just not knowing how things would play out, not knowing concretely what would come from the decisions I made or what people would say, but just going to do it. And that was my period of exploring, if you will, that I didn't get when I was younger.
Yeah, I love that for you and making the connection for us because you talked about when you were a child, you didn't have choice. You weren't in an environment where curiosity was like nurtured and celebrated. It was more, I will tell you what to do and how to feel, and you will comply. But at this stage, it sounds like you leapt into a space of curiosity and you started to look for what's going to give you control, recognizing that would allow you to reclaim parts of yourself. And so a lot of times, we talk about in my field, just reconnecting with the inner child. And it sounds like you described that very process. And that is a gift. Another one of your gems. Thank you. You've shared such a warm and very real set of details of your life. I feel like you're going to be a guest that just revisits quite frequently, because I think a lot of what you share just in talking about not being willing to live or to default to other people's expectations as a way of how you live your life. You've shared so many gems and things that people identify with and are currently living with and struggling through. And so I'd really like to unpack some of those things another time on different episodes.
Can I interject and say one thing?
Yes.
So again, I'm from the South. Christian church raising, Baptist, the whole nine, right? So exploring like the occult sciences was very new to me because it was taught to me to be evil, to be demonic, to be a huge no-no. But something, even before my mom's homegoing, something within me said, you need to go, like, I felt led. I seriously felt led to seek a medium, someone who could communicate with my mom. And I remembered that happened, but it was after the homegoing ceremony. It was on Facebook because I was going through my divorce, and I used my actual government name because I never do that. And I used my actual government name because I had to prove that I was looking for him in order to file for divorce and whatever. So I came across this psychic / medium, and I was like, I don't believe in that stuff. They all lying, right? I was very skeptical. And I remember telling my ancestors, because that was a whole nother thing for me too. And I was like, listen, if all this stuff is real, I need for a Black Southern atheist woman to tell me about my mama. Would you know that this woman on Facebook, and this is before I had friends, I didn't have any friends on Facebook. It was seriously just to look for this man I wanted to divorce. I reached out to her, and she said, well, you know, I don't believe in God and stuff. I don't believe in heaven or hell. Like, she said, I would be an atheist, but in order to be an atheist, you have to believe in nothing. I do believe in the ancestors because I see them. They communicate with me. But that's it. There's no anything. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, ancestors, I'm listening. And what she told me, she told me about my mom, and she's like, but she's back because somebody was pregnant when she passed away. And I was like, well, I was pregnant. And she's like, well, is your daughter, because I told her I had a daughter. She said, is your daughter a Gemini? Because I feel like your mom is carrying this Gemini energy. So, you know, I was like bawling in tears before I responded to her, right? And I was like, yes, I gave birth to a Gemini. And then she was specific. She's like, but this is a May Gemini. And I said, well, okay, lady. And this is all free, right? Girl, like, talk about visceral responses. And what she told me is my mom didn't have such a gentle life. So make sure I treat my daughter as kind and as well as I can. And the reason I bring that up is because that opened my eyes. It helped me with showing up in the way that people want me to, because my mom was a Virgo, and Virgos are always trying to help people in their sleep. I'm pretty sure they're dreaming about helping people, right?
I know that life. Yes.
And that has to be exhausting at some point, where you're taking on the burdens, the hardships, the problems, the issues of other people, and they're not always willing participants to receive your help, although they call on you. Bizarre, right? And I said to myself, I don't want to die like that. I don't want to die like my mama had so many hopes and dreams that she still wanted to explore and experience. And I said to myself, something's got to give. I'm either going to give up my hopes and dreams for the sake of other people who talk about me, who don't think that highly of me. They just want to use me because they're getting something out of me because it benefits them. Or if showing up in the way that people expect me to cuts me off from what I want, then it's okay for me to cut them off. I have a decision to make. And that was when I heard that about my mom being my daughter. It was the support, that spiritual support I needed, because like I said, it really is unmarked territory. This is new to me, and there's more accountability on my part, and more work and more healing, and then more things to learn. It made that decision easier to commit to.
It's amazing what giving birth gives birth to beyond the physical being. And that's such a gift to have some type of proximity to you. Thank you for sharing that. That's so special and that's so moving. And it's so affirming, because folks are, I was just talking with someone about how we all, at some point in life, we are in between being truth seekers and truth givers at different times in our life. And I feel like at this moment, you are a truth giver. And those of us that are looking or listening, we're in a position of seeking some type of liberation, seeking some type of reconnection with self and our inner child, and just seeking, just our fullest self. And I feel like that's what you offered.
Oh, Ashe.
So I guess in closing, because you've given so many gems, what is the singular thing, if there can only be one, what is the singular thing that you want people to take away from what you've shared?
Significant takeaway is it's okay to trust yourself. It's all right not to have all the pieces together. Like, okay, before I take this action, I need to know ABC 1, 2, 3. Like, it is okay not to know and to trek that journey, because like, you're worth it. The pressure is off of me to show up in the ways that people want me to. Like, it feels good to be free. It's kind of like Beyonce's song, It Feels So Good to Be Alive. But instead of alive, it's like, it feels so good to be free. Like, I really do feel like I can do whatever I want to do, and it shows up. And me having my business that I can, like, there's no security that it's going to be what I need it to be when I need it to be, but I'm able to, like, I've learned to trust the process. So trust the unknown, because you trust yourself and that you will be what you need to be within those moments, even incrementally. Like, trust is there.
Ashe. So you all can't see me, but I'm body rolling. I'm just like, everything you gave was a gem. Tell us where folks can find you.
So you can find me on TikTok at College Prep ESL. That's English Second Language. You can also find me on Facebook, same College Prep ESL, same handle. You can also visit my website, because I'm in the process of posting blogs, right? So the website is payhip.com/collegeprepesl.
Thank you. And these handles and websites, we will tag them in all of our postings. Cassandra, you are a gift.
Oh, thank you.
You are such, again, a brilliant, beautiful light. What you shared is going to transform folks' lives. And I thank you for doing that work. And I wish it to return to you tenfold.
Ashe.
And our listeners, thank you for clicking on that link and deciding to spend some time with us over here at I'm Not Gonna Be Quiet podcast. If you're interested in being a guest, please email at I'm Not Gonna Be Quiet podcast@gmail.com. Leave a review, and I'll see you in another 2 weeks. Be well, everyone.